think tank Saturday night chat. So we started this initiative a few years ago, and we are in our 14th session today. So the basic premise of this initiative is basically to everything starts with a conversation. That's the underlying motto of this initiative. So we need to start discussing the issues that affect us. We need to hear different perspectives, so that we can inform and educate ourselves, and then also like think about how can we address or take steps to resolve the issue that affecting us, the professionals, as well as our beloved occupational therapy profession. Before I even proceed further, I want to extend my sincere Occupational Therapy Day wishes to everyone. Tomorrow is the World Occupational Therapy Day. So, on behalf of IOTTT, I would like to extend my wishes, OT Day wishes to you all. So today, again, all our Saturday night chat sessions are recorded and available on our YouTube channel. So this session is also being recorded. Your participation indicates your consent as well. Again, you can also always go back to our YouTube channel to look at our previous ones, as well as this recording will be available in a day or two as well. So you could follow up on this discussion. So today's topic is basically insurance coverage for occupational therapy services in India. So every session has a moderator, like who is an IOTTT member. So today we have Ms. Cheruba Gem, who is our moderator, who's going to guide us through this discussion. Um, Please, the more we actively participate in this discussion, it's going to be a useful resource for all of us. So do not hesitate. Again, there is no right or wrong here. It's a perspective talking here. So you can certainly, pitch in with your perspective. Be respectful of others' comments, even if you deny when with someone. Please like do so respectfully, and actively participate and contribute to the discussion. So with that, I'm going to ask Cheruba ma'am to please take it over.
Okay, so hello everyone. It's a great thing to be the moderator of this Saturday night session. So, would you like to introduce yourselves one by one, please?
All right, so I will get started. Yeah, my name is Karthik Mani. For those of you who do not know me, I'm the president of the Indian Occupational Therapist think tank. Aside from that, I'm working as an assistant professor and a director of clinical education at the University of Texas Medical Branch in the United States. Thank you. Murli, you can go next.
Hi everyone, I'm Murali Krishnan from Chennai. My background is I'm with IOTTT as treasurer of IOTTT, and I'm also doing a lot of work on the clinical aspect, including economics and adult rehab. I have 2 centers in Chennai. I finished my PG from Mumbai, and I'm currently pursuing my PhD in Delhi.
So, Abhijit.
Hello. Yeah, hello all. This is Abhijit Mukadam. I am an occupational therapist from Mulund, Mumbai. I have my center in Mulund. I recently started a couple of years back. I had practiced before in Nashik and on the western side of Mumbai before. It's been 15 plus years of practice right now. Okay, and yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, and would like to add that I was a former member of MS OTPT Council. I was nominated by the government, and now looking forward for that our All India Council also. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Congrats.
Congrats. Godandan, sir.
Hi, Karthik. Thank you. I'm Godandan, and so I qualified from Santosh College of Occupational Therapy in Chennai. I am working in Ireland. I have a private practice called Activity Therapy. So I worked in the pediatric in India for 5.5 years. I'm here in Ireland almost 20 years now.
Okay.
Vanashri.
Hello, sir. Myself, Vanashri Dalande. I am associate professor from DY Patil University, Navi Mumbai, Nehru. and I practice in clinic also in Navi Mumbai. And I deal with clients who need receipts for insurance purpose. So that is why I was looking forward for this session. What are the do's, don'ts, and what are the aspects of this insurance coverage for occupational therapists?
Got it. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
So myself, I'm Cheruba. I'm the occupational therapist at St. Thomas Hospital, Chennai. I've been in the pediatrics for around 15 years. So now it's a great thing to talk or discuss the uh, an area of high priority, which is the insurance schemes. So the first thing or the first point of discussion would be like, do we have insurance coverage for occupational therapy services in India? So that is the point of discussion. It's open now. Whoever wants to answer or whoever wants to talk about it can start the discussion.
So anyone who's like
Can
basically,
I
I
add,
mean,
sir?
Yeah,
yes, go ahead, please.
So when I get patients, I practice musculoskeletal. I like my specialty is musculoskeletal sciences. So I deal with post-operative cases of knee ligament injuries post-op or post-shoulder rotator cuff post-op cases, or in general also in case if they have medical insurance. So usually they get insurance for 90 days or mostly up to 90 days or 1 month post-operative, and then they want receipts and prescription from me. I give that under like my stamp head, and then they get insurance. So there is no issue as such. Mostly, I have not come across that they said that someone has denied them. So if you are you have registration number under registration council, like I have MSOTPT council registration and EOTAP registration. So that is included in my stamp head and letterhead. So they need prescription under your letterhead of each day and receipts of each day. So that I give them and they get insurance.
Okay.
Okay,
Got it.
that
So
is in
just so that just so that I understand clearly, so you're saying like for post-operative cases, whatever the
Yes,
medical healthcare insurance the client has, so if
right.
the referring orthopedician gives you a referral for like 10 sessions or so,
Yes,
and then
yes,
you have the referral, and then for the 10
right.
sessions, you have documentation and the receipt, and then you submit everything to the insurance and you get the money
Correct.
from the
Yes,
insurance. Okay.
correct.
And is
And
there a time period, like, within 90 days, or is there a time period that takes for them to
yes, yes.
reimburse you?
Post-operative, yeah, post-operative date, from post-operative date till 90 days or from post-operative date till 180 days like that. So sometimes, they may request, can you give few more sessions because they want to continue after that also, like that. But the stipulated period is usually 90 days to 180 days post-operative.
Got it. And may I just ask you an add-on question? Is it like sort of a public sector health insurance, or is it like fall under the private sector? Like what I'm
Private,
asking is
private,
private
private.
insurance. Okay,
Private,
okay.
and mostly they say that physiotherapy, post-operative
Oh,
physiotherapy. So initially I had this query that if it is written post-operative physiotherapy, whether my receipts will be valid or not. But then in that case, till date there is no question, because I think since we are registered body, like we have registered under council, MSOTPT, so I didn't get any cross question from their side, why you are practicing or why you are giving this receipt instead of physiotherapist.
got it.
So they
Got it.
write rehabilitation. The surgeons write rehabilitation, post-operative rehab. Referral is like that: post-operative physiotherapy, post-operative rehabilitation.
Got it. So yeah, yeah. Even that's what my understanding is. I think several across the spectrum between public sector health insurance as well as the private sector health insurances. What I again, it's been a while since I practiced in India, but what has been the case for decades now, like since all these emergence of health insurances in India, is that they just kind of like cover these services not for services. They just kind of cover that in ambit of either for a like a cardiac conditions or stroke, like stroke conditions, or like post operative. So it's like basically like more like for this condition, this is the maximum package under this plan, and then like any eligible services that the patient needs for this condition under this plan, and until they reach the cap, they are ready to reimburse. But it is like, they are not really recognizing individual services and put a cap, like say for example, like in the Western country, if you look at it, most of the insurances say in a particular year of insurance, in the insurance year, whatever the fiscal year they follow, like September to August or March to April 1 to March 31, whatever it is, they say 30 sessions are allowed, and if there is a need for more session, then we need to provide medical documentation, like sort of a justification for extension, and then the insurance might approve like 3 or 4 more sessions depending on the patient thing. So, but again, in India, I think what has always been the case is that it's like more sort of a medical centric model. So they just kind of like go with it, like what type of services are covered, like they say ambulance, doctor fees, labs. So it's kind of like little broad, and then like if we do any service that doesn't really fall under the bucket of post-operative care or inpatient hospitalization care, then that's where the challenge arises. Is like, if you're part of that cycle, then probably like you might get reimbursed. But if you're out of that cycle, despite the patient needs it, provider is referring the patient to OT, and the OT is providing and providing documentation and billing, it's still not covered by that insurance scheme. So I think the coverage regulations is where we need to advocate more, I guess. But thank you for sharing.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So others, please. So would you like to? I think her screen is froze. Cheruba, if you're hearing me, please would you please restate the question? We have some more new participants joined.
Yes, the point of discussion or the thing that we've just started is like, do we have insurance coverage for OT services in India? That is the thing. So please share your own experiences, whichever part of India you're in. So it would be useful for the others also.
So Abhijit, were you trying to
Um,
say something? Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. So I practice mostly pediatrics. I also practice ortho rehab and neuro rehab, but 90% it's always pediatrics. And so what I do, there are parents who come there who work in IT companies. So they have some private insurance offered by the company itself or third party, any third party. So they have a form kind of thing, and I have to just fill my clinic details there, my registration number, and I have to share the receipts. Okay. Uh, and then I have to give one letter that on my letterhead that the therapy is going on and these are the improvements and she needs more therapy. I had with in pediatric cases, the therapy goes on for a couple of years also. So they also get reimbursed by, I think sometimes they get 60%, 70%, but that also matters a lot in that. In kind So in cases like ortho rehab, it is quite like it was mentioned before also that in the name of physiotherapy, post-op physiotherapy or post-op rehabilitation, it doesn't matter if we are a certified OT and we give them therapy in the name of physiotherapy also. It doesn't matter to the insurance company because they are also not that clear what is physiotherapy, what is occupational therapy, but the patients do get reimbursed in that case. They also get some of the percentage, I think 60, 70 or 80% also they receive as a part of reimbursement. But actually I didn't have any very specific knowledge, so that was my aim to join this conversation, so I could get a specific knowledge and I could help more patients. So reimbursement will be a very happening topic ahead.
Yes, certainly, always, because reimbursement shapes practice. And if you look at the profession's development trajectory, in wherever the profession is somewhat known, like I wouldn't say well known, like we always have this identity crisis across the world. But if you really look at it, whichever country has this health insurance, like where the OT is even more noticeable and recognized, profession relatively more noticeable and recognized. And the reason is, I always say that, like the if the reimbursement changes, it's going to affect the demography of the practice, the type of services we deliver, the type of settings we work, everything. So reimbursement has a strong influence, and again, it's very obvious, right? So wherever the money is, like obviously then everybody has their own life and career and also, then the people will get attracted to it. And if there's a reimbursement change that kind of really like decreases the reimbursement, there will be a lot of dropouts, there will be a lot of um, what is it, the workforce in that area kind of drops. I've been like in a like examining this workforce data for almost a decade now, and I could really see whenever there is an insurance change that happens. I'm talking about the US context here. So whenever the reimbursement, like a Medicare cut or something happens, there's an outflux of people, like there's a decline. A lot of people lose their job, and then they eventually migrate, and then like trying to go to the other area where they can find potential opportunities and jobs. So it has a strong influence, so there is no doubt about it. But again, your
Yeah,
comment
and I
also.
would, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go
Mm.
ahead.
I would like to mention in pediatric occupational therapy, it really matters the most because it's like, in Mumbai, in city like Mumbai, if we are, uh, we are having sessions like thrice or four times a week in initial year of therapy
Yeah,
of that kid. So the parents are like, they are bearing a cost of around 12,000, 14,000 per month,
yeah,
right? So that is too much. When they are spending for medical or any therapy purpose, it is too much. So I always think that we are charging, but when I think in the in the context of that father or mother, or they are spending so much, so we always think that if we are going to spend like this, so it's very, if we get reimbursed, it's a good, very very big support. Okay,
yes.
so they are they are they are giving us, they are paying us from the investments. So it's a very big topic, very important topic right now, and
True.
it could help the pediatric therapy field very much, I think.
Sure, certainly agreed. Again, your comment also like took me back to my years of private practice back in India, like in the like late 2000s. The same thing happened. Like I had a lot of clients who worked in IT, and they said like they have this 50,000 cap or something that per year they can use it towards their family members' medical expenses. So I did the same thing. Like I gave them they pay me, but then I give them a receipt and everything, so which they can use and apply for reimbursement. And a lot of them do get reimbursed. So I'm talking about like 15 years before, like 16 years before, and it happened back then as well. And it looks like it continues to happen. Again, some support, some sort of reimbursement is better than nothing. And also, yeah, you certainly raise a very good point. Like if we just put ourselves in their shoes, like how feasible it is for them to like spend this much money on their child's therapy every month, like for a significant amount of duration. So, well, a point well taken. Others, please chime in. So, I don't know, Murali, if you have some thoughts about the CM health insurance plan, and I know it's the reimbursement amount is very less, and also if you could comment about all those things.
Yeah, hi. See, my experience with insurance has been, more with pediatric cases, less with adult rehab. I haven't had ortho or psychiatric clients who are asking for reimbursement, or I'm not even aware of it. But recently, whom I had as a for a stroke rehab, for hand function rehab, this guy is definitely one of the leading surgeon in the Chennai. But still, he did go for insurance, and then he got it covered. But again, partially to some extent, that he is going on a rehabilitation mode. So in his scheme, it was not mentioned anything particular, but it was only mentioned as rehabilitation coverage. So that he took, and the partial reimbursement was done for him. Now he has stopped the sessions because we are almost out of it, and it's only on the home plans now. But when it comes to pediatrics, yes, the occupational therapy is covered, but not in the name of occupational therapy. Mostly it is rehabilitation and therapy services. That's what they are mentioning when it comes to children with the ASD, or even children with developmental disabilities. Children with developmental disabilities as well. And what happens here is both the state government and the central government do provide insurance options for their staff. The state government employees and the people who are working in the central government institutes. But in that case, what happens, like they have a cap. I think in the NCPL and all, it's like they can only claim for almost up to 9,500. It should not be more than 10,000 is the cap limit they have per month. So even though they pay more, we'll have to give the receipt only for that particular amount so that they can claim it. If we give more, the claiming gets difficult for them. So the claiming itself has to be restricted only to that particular number of sessions. So it gets easier. The procedure gets easier. Otherwise, what happens once I did give them a 13K bill for a month, and then it came back asking why 13K? What is the reason? Give me a stuff. And I agree with Abhijit in this aspect because any insurance company asks for a certain document. One is the referral source from where it is coming because it's easy for them, not because they don't know what occupational therapy, it is because for them on the documentation aspect, from this person, it went to this person, from this person, it went to this person. So they can say it has a proof that they needed it, not just somebody's claiming it without a base. So any medical professional needs to tell, okay, for this purpose. But I think that stops there. And every month they ask me for a feedback or a goal set every month. So I provided them that every month I will not be able to give you. So at the minimum I can give you is the 3 month window period, 3 month review thing. So every 3 months I have to give, keeping in mind because some of the insurance companies use the algorithm to catch what goals we are setting and what activities we are using. So we cannot repeat the same thing again and again. So the goal has to be genuinely set and worked upon, and improvement has to be documented or worded properly, so it goes smoothly. Private companies, as in the IT companies, they have this group insurance which easily covers. There is no cap. I recently have one guy who's coming to me. His cap directly mentions occupational therapy. I give him a as in two different documents. One is everyday attendance, and there is a monthly receipt, and also a 3 month review. This is the goal. This is what I'm going to do, and this much hours of therapy he needs in a day. The whole structure of how therapy is. So they want it documented for their purpose, but I think it's good for us also because when we document and keep it in systematic, it's easier for the insurance companies to trust us and go ahead instead of a random bill. This way, it helps the IT company, which I was telling about, which is giving him almost 40,000 a month only on this therapy aspect for that particular kid. So the father was saying, "You give me double sessions a day, also fine, because I will get it covered. Include the transport, I will get it covered because some of the companies are providing even the transport charges for that particular child's therapy." Uh, that's what is happening.
Got it. Got it. And any words about the CM health insurance scheme and how much coverage it provides for OT services? Like if you're a registered
Yeah.
autism center in, yeah.
Yeah. So I think every state has the CM scheme on their own level. In Tamil Nadu, is what happening is, Mark, can you please go to the what happens is the CM scheme has 10,000 rupees as the limitation for each month. That 10,000 rupees includes four therapies altogether: the occupational therapy, physiotherapy, speech therapy, and remedial education. All four has to be included, sorry, including ABA. So all five included, it is 10,000 rupees. So per session, it comes to somewhere around 125 rupees or 130 rupees. Is the charge the government has allotted for each session, and maximum of 3 sessions in a week. OT can be only 3 sessions a week.
This is
Speech can be only 3 sessions a week. But the whole overall calculation should not exceed more than 10,000 per month. And that's directly credited to the center which is approved by the government for doing this thing. Parent has to pay no single penny from their hands when they are when the centers are providing assistance in chief minister's insurance scheme. They cannot demand any money from the parent except that 10,000 rupees which comes from. The benefit is every aspect has to be there. Again, the documentation has to be very neat. Only problem here is how well, how good we are doing these activities, because we know
Mhm.
10,000 for 5 therapies or 6 therapies is not good. So in that 10,000 rupees, how are we providing quality therapy is still a question. And how are we managing it?
Yeah, I mean, like 125 rupees per session is like too less of a reimbursement amount given the cost of running a center and paying OTs, and so definitely that's like a lot of discrepancy there. So that's something that we need to really advocate for. Yeah, but thank you so much for sharing those insights. So others, again, we are still talking about, do we have coverage for OT services in India? Is the broad question that our moderator put forth. So anyone else who has had some experience in the Indian context, please.
I
May
see
I add?
three people joined. There is Saumil, Dinesh Yadav, and then Raji ma'am.
Yeah,
Please,
Saumil
guys,
was supposed to
introduce
say
yourself
something.
and go ahead.
Yeah. Saumil was supposed to. I mean, go ahead, Saumil.
Yes. So good evening, guys. Myself, I'm working in a pediatric setup since almost 10 years now. I have the similar experiences as Abhijit as well as Murli said with regards to insurance policies in the pediatric sector. I just happened to talk with one of our financial analysts, and I just asked them that when do you see this day coming up that there would be policies which would be covering up rehabilitation services under it. So he said that there are very less chances of this happening in the near future because already those medical insurance companies are running in a big loss. And our services are more of recurring services, as we all know that these rehabilitation services can go on for a long period, for a few months, even for a few years, sometimes down the line. It becomes very much tolling on the insurance companies to provide reimbursement in that regard. And also, there is no uniformity with regards to charging. Like a person in a very good posh area might charge very high. A person in a very basic area or in might be a bit of rural area might charge a bit low. So there is no such standard uniformity as well as a recurring cost to the company. That is the reason generally insurance companies are not thinking in that direction of covering rehab services. That is what his words they were. And I somehow feel that in a country like India, that can be true that companies can think of saving their funds because they know that if somebody registers with us and somebody has a child with certain disorder, which might be a bit long standing, so then we might have to reimburse each month, and that can be very critical for the company as well. So that is what his analysis was. I am sure that that can be just one point of view, but yes, when it comes to India, I don't see that insurance companies are very much okay involving recurring therapy services into their domain, into their allowance zones or permit zones, as well as I see that this day is also a bit far where um, government would start covering up insurances as being there done in the Western world. So this is what my this thing says, my experience or my overview says about the situation of insurance. I just wanted to understand since we run centers and we were looking out for standardizations with regards to getting approvals from insurance companies and reimbursement companies. So we just wanted to understand that dynamics of how much that rehabilitation sector gets covered in insurance companies by insurance companies. So to get the documentation into standardization to get a lot of things to get standardized with regards to protocols, goals, and all these things. So that is the reason when I was studying this topic and I consulted a financial analyst, that is what he had to say that I don't see any soon that companies in India would at least try to cover up rehab services in their package.
Got it. That's a very good initiative as well as
Valid
a
point.
very good insight. Yeah, go ahead. Somebody was trying to say something. Yeah.
Is
So
there anyone
again,
else?
what I Yeah. Okay. You're asking anyone else. So, okay, just I would like to like comment on Saumil's point of view. I mean, it's a point well taken because again, India is hugely populated countries, and of course, given the long-standing nature of rehabilitation services, any company like coming forward to reimburse therapy services, would obviously see that as a huge expense on their end. And certainly, again, like a good job that you discussed with the financial analyst to see some, like, what could be the projections as well. But I'm also thinking on the other side. I think it is upon us to like show the value of our services, like what are we bringing to the table, like by covering, say again, it cannot be in perpetuity, but in a plan year, definitely there are so many things, like there every insurance, if it's a private and all, then on all the insurance holders are paying a certain amount of premium to them. So, and then there are some insurance regulations, like like if you go to Iridice website, we can really like learn about all the insurance regulations that are put forth by the country. So they have to actually spend certain amount of money that they collect as premium towards reimbursing healthcare services. But the problem is now others are like obviously like have more lobbying power, so those services getting covered more, I mean, in my humble view, is like more than necessary, and then whereby it's kind of depleting the money that could be used. So two things here is obviously, yes, you talked about a little bit of standardization of protocol and the way we charge and deliver therapy. So that kind of things need to happen. But also, I think more than that, we need to like start documenting the value what we are bringing, like in a sense, like what kind of progress have we shown. Say if a kid is attending 3 times a week for like 6 months or a year, what was the kids functional status and behavioral status on day one and after the end of 1 year of therapy, and what impact it made on the family. So we need to really like probably bring in more research with all these outcome oriented research to show the data, and the data will speak volumes. But otherwise we keep on, oh, this child needs for like 3 years, he has to come three times a week, and this is what we charge because we have a lot of running expenses. So again, we need to really like once we show the value. So say for example, why these the room rent, ICU, doctor's fees, and surgeon charges, inpatient hospitalization, because they see, oh yeah, in order for the patient to be survive and functional and healthy, all these services are essential. So the insurance are saying, okay, with my premium cost that I'm collecting, I'm going to reimburse all these things to my beneficiaries. But again, by getting OT services, what is that they are getting? So I think we need to also bring in those data to show the value of OT services. Then we can actually like get a seat at the table, and then like advocate for us. Again, we can show the models across the world. A lot of private insurances do cover like 30 sessions a year, which is not many it sounds at the outset. But again, always all the insurances has a caveat there, it can be extended if there is a proven medical necessity. So if there's a medical necessity and a justification provided by the provider of why the services are needed and what benefit it would really like provide to the client, what are the outcomes, anticipated outcomes are, then the insurances are ready to approve extended number of sessions with a small copay. So I think we need to really come up with an idea where the insurance provides like 60 to 70% of coverage, and then like 20 to 30% of copay comes from the patient's out of pocket. So that kind of would be a model, I think, that we need to move forward. I think the first is like very basic step I would say at this time is, some of us know something about insurances, but I think all of us really should have a clear understanding of how health insurances operate in India. Like we have some government sponsored like schemes, and then we have some private sector plans, and we have some state government like CMCH, employee state insurance, ESI, right? So we have different levels. So we need to have a broader understanding, first of all, what are all the types of insurance, healthcare insurances, and how it covers rehab services, like in general as well as specific to OT. What are the coverage plans, and where to look for that information, they need to know that. And then like so first we need to start from there, developing a basic understanding, building data to show the value of services, following proper documentation to show like retrospectively, if some of you are running centers for several years, if you have enough data, then you can just project the data and say like we got like x number of kids or x number of patients a year, and this is the functional progress they have made, or these are the outcomes that we have achieved. So those kind of data oriented presentation would really convince some of these stakeholders. But again, yeah, first we need to develop a basic understanding and go from there is what I would like to share. Murali, please.
I was just about to add up the same point here, and then Samuel did mention about how difficult it will be for the insurance companies. I had a small chat with the Star Health Insurance executive some time back. The point that they mentioned is echoing with Samuel's point that what is the time limit you need therapy for? How many sessions it will be over with? And that's what their direct question was, because in their form or their formula of reimbursement, it asks how this many sessions are required for this condition. And if we see the insurance schemes, the clear-cut understanding what we can get is the insurances are based on the conditions, not on the services which is provided. It's not about the surgery, it's not about the medicine, it's about this particular condition receives insurance or not. So uh, thanks to the people who are in the IT field, what happened is they kept knocking the door on the insurances when it came to medical health for their children. The children with autism are getting insurance covered because they kept knocking the door, and they had to keep sending the receipts again and again. The lovely part of it is the formal communication through mail happens to the boss of the company, to the insurance company, and to the ministry as well through them. So they kept sending, because this father came to me and said, if he doesn't give me this much amount for my child's therapy, I know how to get it. I asked him, like, are you going to fight with your company or a fight with the insurance company? He said, like, his job is to give me the insurance. My job is to prove him that I need it. So I will keep knocking the door and I'll keep sending my mails with the proof that my son needs your insurance thing. So he got it finally done. So I think uh, when it comes to pediatrics, it might be a little difficult, but the other services like the splints and adaptive devices are covered in insurance as assistive and adaptive devices already, any condition for that matter. So the stroke and ortho rehab, everything is covered under condition, but the services are not covered. That's where we also get lagged, because the immediate requirement is physio, and then the long recurring processes in the occupational therapy hand, where the time limit we are not able to give it. I think that's the negative aspect of it. Positive aspect is somebody is already knocking the door and putting those conditions one by one into the picture.
Abhijit?
Yeah, Abhijit.
Yeah, I would like to ask one question. Now we are talking like, because in our country it is not practical yet. So it is not practiced yet that our therapy services are covered, but we should learn, or the insurance companies should always learn from the first world countries, or Western countries, so called, that they are doing since years. They are doing since many years. So what is the condition, or what is the uh, you know uh, technicalities, or what is the procedure followed by them? How do they do this job? We have to learn from them also, I think. It is not
Okay.
like that, it is not being invented. It is, we have to just discover how the other countries are doing so well in this, I think. So if
So
anybody has to throw light on this topic, you please go forward. We would like to learn.
certainly, certainly. So I will just share, the of course, insurance reimbursement is a major driver for OT services here for sure. And the one thing is the government amount of healthcare expenditure is so huge here. So if you take Medicare, Medicaid, and all, it's all government sponsored, right? And then all the professions are well regulated here, and then everything is like to the minute documentation here. So it's like everything is well documented, so the data speaks. So every time they look on something, they're looking at broader outcomes. So for example, every time a patient gets hospitalized, the Medicare reimbursement starts again for people over 65 or eligible disabilities. So what happens is then government expenditure is actually going high. If the patient, there is a big study that kind of like gave a lot of bump to OTs here, is like those patients who received, like it's a massive data, like I'm talking about like thousands and thousands of patients, retrospective data were reviewed, and then they said having OT services is actually minimizing readmissions in the hospital, or 30-day readmissions in the hospital, because they are more functional, more stronger, less number of falls that leads to decreased hospital. So if there is a hospitalization episode, and the cost for government is so high, so they think, oh no, we need to put these rehab services in place because that will reduce the readmission rate, which will also save money to the government. So I think, the government sees the value of having these services. So like, obviously they every year they just kind of, there's a little bit of adjustments to the based on the budget amount they have. There's a little bit of $2 more, $2 less sort of a thing for each unit of services. When I say unit of services, that's about like 8 to 15 minutes is one unit. Like 15 minutes is one unit. If it is more than 8 minutes, they will count that as one unit of service. So if I'm treating a patient for 16 minutes, then I'll bill for 4 units, and there is a unit charge that's approved for whatever type is it, the therapeutic exercise or therapeutic activity, sensory re-education, wheelchair management, whatever it is. They have a code, so everything is coded, and then I will use that code and document everything. So everything has to be properly documented, and everything is audited, everything is monitored and well regulated. So the first thing that works to the favor is the system of regulation that's already in place, number one. And second thing is the documentation that that makes available plenty of data for the interested stakeholders to come and really like see the value and extrapolate the data to see whether they are benefiting or losing. Actually, like by providing these services, we might bring in more to the table, more value to the table, but those values are not really documented, right? Say for example, if without OT services, a child condition or an adult condition would be a little bit more severe, where a 24 hours caregiver support might be required, then obviously their ability to generate more income on behalf of their family would be less, all those things. So we really need to the other thing again, the lack of data is another thing. And also another major factor, as I said, a chunk of reimbursement is coming through the government when it comes to OT services in the US. Private insurances do cover, as I said, but they have a cap, 30 services. So what the providers do here is they use the 30 sessions, but most of the time here, when it comes to pediatric clinic in the US and all, it's like 1 times a week or 2 times a week max. And then once they ran out, they subsidize the cost and make it an out of pocket until the plan year ends. And when the new plan year starts again, they're eligible for another 30 services, another 30 sessions, so they will go back to insurance. So they just, okay, if through insurance they are charging, say for example, $170 a session or something, when without insurance they will just kind of, okay, so you just pay $100 or something. So they just kind of provide a subsidized services when the insurance stops paying. And then the patient is willing to, because they want to continue the services to see they also see the value. And then the cycle repeats until a certain thing. But again, documentation. So every time the plan year ends, they need to discharge the patient from therapy. So there is a lot of regulatory requirements that the provider needs to follow. Again, if the child has improved, whatever the improvement the therapist saw, like they will just kind of document and discharge the patient. And then like when it comes to new plan year, they need to do another eval to check the status at that point in time, and then they set goals and then like admit the therapy back into the child. So these documentation sometimes might look redundancy, but again, there is a system that we need to follow. So the system, government funding, regulation, all these kind of works in favor for reimbursement industry, and that's where we are struggling in the Indian context. That's my view. And I would like to hear from Godan and Sarah, so like how things work in Ireland context.
Sir, Godandan sir, just a
Yes,
minute.
Karthik, yeah, thanks
Uh,
for that.
I want to put this
Yeah.
because after listening to Karthik, I want to put one clarification both from Dr. Godandam and Karthik. We have so many insurance providers in India. When
Yeah.
we are discussing about something like this, sometime I just remembered, is it like limited number of insurance companies there in European countries, and more of government-based insurance system works? And then could that be one factor why we are not able to benefit more of insurance schemes in India? Will that be a reason?
I would
Mhm.
sort of disagree with that thought, because here also we have a lot of insurance providers and they all have their own coverage metrics and plans. And there are certain insurances that may say we do not cover these services because they might charge very less premium. So yeah, there are different players, and but again, here health insurance is something that you need to have, otherwise the costs will be very horrible. So so that is also, I think, like a lot of things are system driven in a way, I would say. But there is a lot of insurance and also we have a lot of underinsured and uninsured population as well, and they get services because you cannot deny a services. And what happens is, like, the hospitals will provide the essential services to them, and then those costs will be billed, like, eventually billed to some of the players in the industry, and that will actually increases the cost to those people who are having health insurance, because every year they will look at, like, how much money I collected, how much money I spent on coverage. So they need to report everything to the government. Even if, say, you can form a corporation and then, like, start like selling health insurances, then you need to, like, abide by the regulations and, like, spend 80% of the cost towards coverage. And then based on last year's data, you will set the premium cost for the upcoming year. And that's when things happen is I spend more. So which means in order for me to survive, I need to up my premium cost. So the next year, the plan, the monthly premium cost and everything goes up. So again, everything has its own pros and cons. But I think, we need to kind of explore different models. So that's why I want to hear a different model, that I invited Godandan sir. Please.
Yeah, it's Karthik. Thank you for that. Yeah, so I picked up a lot of kind of insight from your speech. Um, so in Ireland, it's mostly the public service provide the service, and there are private health insurance, but they mainly cover the medical and nursing services. Like you have a private hospitals. It's rarely you see the private rehabilitation or private kind of there are a lot of pediatric setup. Like it's kind of diverging into two different kind of model, one for pediatric and the other one is kind of for adult and the medical kind of care. So in the pediatric, it's there are private kind of rehab, like multi-service kind of rehab unit. So where you have the speech therapy and the occupational therapy and the physiotherapy and the psychologist. Whereas in the kind of the adult and the hospital care, it's mainly the public service. Now you have a number of private hospitals coming on board, and they mainly provide the medical and nursing care. And then in the community, a kind of a long-term kind of follow-up. You have the same kind of the home help, we call it now, they call them the home care. So they are kind of outsourced, but still they are kind of funded by the public funding. So you have kind of agency, they can provide certain number of home help, that's through the private service. It's not to say they are private service because the patient won't pay out of their pocket. It's still from the government funding. Now the things are changing because they can't afford to pay all these services like maintenance services, like whereas everything is kind of recurring service. So even like a hospital care becoming kind of recurrent. There are patients coming into hospitals like 3 or 4 times in a year, and they stay kind of 3 to 4 weeks. So that's nearly half of the year they spend in the hospital. And they when they go to community, they have to pay the home help and then they have the medications. So that's kind of funded by the government again. And so it's costly service. So they are looking into different ways of doing business, a government as well, because they couldn't fund them. Now, what they're looking at, it's kind of a telehealth, and they are kind of encouraging kind of a remote and the telehealth. Um, and that's one area. And the other thing is kind of a OT service as a value in where you have kind of modification to the house. It's kind of done, and that goes across the generations. Like you would do the modification, the ramp, put in an accessible bathroom and equipments. You probably do that for the kind of parents, and then the children grow up to be kind of over 65. They're still valid after kind of 20 years, 30 years. And that's a durable in terms of the OT service, whereas the physio, they still need the physio a few weeks in the hospital care, or even the home help they need every day. Whereas the OT has the value, like kind of you're encouraging patients to be independent. You kind of freeing up the resources. Like once they are self-reliant and independent, they don't need kind of home health services, and that can be invested in different service. Again, it's coming in like there's no kind of a ring fence funding for the OT. As such, it's kind of rehab, and the staffing could be the physio or could be the OT. It's kind of a health and social care profession funding, and then kind of it's kind of a bundle funding. So it's not kind of a ring fence for a particular profession. And that's changing. And then the durable service like equipments, if you give them the shower chair or the wheelchairs, they kind of stay longer than a year. Whereas if you do kind of recurrent therapy service, unless they make a huge progress after kind of a stroke, it's a durable. Whereas in kind of a deconditioned services like a fall and fracture, they end up in the hospital if they lose kind of support and the equipment, like the strengthening service, like a support, like as the physio do, and that kind of lasts maybe a week or two after the hospital discharge, and they tend to have fall and the fracture. They end up in the hospital, so it's not durable, but that's kind of coming into the light in the recent months. So they can't afford to have that kind of recurrent service and the funding. So that's where the OT service, some of them you can do them remotely, and the home program, most of them is kind of, you can teach them. That's what we do. You teach patient to be independent, you teach children to be self-reliant, and you can do that kind of remotely. You don't have to have hands-on as such, like in the other profession, like medical or and the physio.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true. Like, repeated hospitalization is going to drain the money on the government or the provider side as well. So,
Mhm.
thank you. And like, I also would like to hear from the others who joined the call. Mrs. Rajeshwari, Naresh Babu, please, if you could chime in your experience or thought related to the topic that we are discussing.
I basically was more of in the learning mode, and I wanted to see how things are taken care in and around. And there are a few of the parents who are claiming, um, but one of the parent in the central government sector and another parent in the IT sector, they are claiming and then getting the refund. um, but I was very keen on basically learning, from you guys as to how is the insurance processes that is going on. So that's something I was looking at
Got
because
it.
quite a lot of, yes, like you guys were mentioning, the data is going to play a major role. Once we have the data very clearly and we put it across, then I think we will have a way in.
So, thank you. Thank you. So I'll just turn to the moderator. So do you want to guide us through? We can just stretch it for another 10 minutes or so if you want to go with the next question, please.
Yeah, anyone else would like to share some more thoughts about the same thing? Or shall we move on to the next one?
Yes, please.
So in the chat, we've been discussing a lot of government schemes and private insurance schemes. So what do you think works more, or which is more beneficial for us or more beneficial for the parent who's claiming or for the client who's claiming? So that would be the next point to be discussed in this thing. So now you can share some things about that. So I had come into contact with a parent who had actually had an insurance for the child with autism. But the thing is, like, the insurance provider did not cover for the OT services that were provided. But when the child is hospitalized or and admitted in a hospital, only that part of the um, funds were reimbursed. So that is what more happens in Tamil Nadu. So likewise, many of you or others who would like to share some things about it, you're free to do it now.
So, I mean, like, based on what as I said, I've been like, I have I haven't practiced OT in India for many years now. So, but based on what I see is here, there are some people who manage to push the reimbursement providers and try to get it reimbursed versus not. But it looks like there is some gray zone that people with information and knowledge and means to
Yeah, that's the thing.
seize, Yeah, so they can make a case and get the reimbursement, but others, or it's so there's definitely a lack of clarity and a lot of gray zone. That's what I see. And also, like, in the chat, I've just kind of like, again, as I said, like, based on, I really reviewed this topic in preparation for this chat, and then, like, that's what I posted there, because I thought of bringing it up, but again, we are closing in on the time, so I also post all the information that I found. So what it looks like is, again, we are currently under some sort of a package. If you're part of hospitalization cost, yes, and if you're working in ESI, then ESI money comes, and those who are eligible under the ESI plan can come to the ESI hospitals and centers and get the treatment. And of course, we have all these NIPMED and centers like that where the public can go. But again, the scale, like, the amount of people we have, the amount of children with disability or adult with disability we have, and the number of therapists in those type of centers, and the locations of them as well, everything is, how accessible the therapy is, how many patients can be treated in those type of infrastructure settings. So again, there is a lot of questions that need to be answered. But I think, we like, again, I just when I explored, I was surprised that there's so many categories of insurances and so many insurance companies. I think that the starting point for us would be, like, just kind of like, take some time, probably, like, do a task force or something to extrapolate the coverage details of all these plans, and then, like, see where OT fits. If not, then we need to just kind of like, on behalf of IOTTT or the state or national associations, we need to, like, start, kind of like meeting with them, and then, like, kind of like try to explain the importance. And then also, like, again, whenever I feel like, when you go to any advocacy talk or any conversation, we need to make it like a win-win conversation. So it is not only like telling them that, hey, you need to cover for OT services and all. By covering what OT services, what they would get, what is the value that they would generate, like, what are the ways that they could say, we also cover the, the rehab type of services, so that might, it might increase more subscribers to the insurances, right? So by covering these things, you will also get more subscribers to your plan, because they are not going to spend on each and every one under the plan, right? So they're going to get money from a pool of people, but only a small chunk of them are going to claim the benefits. But like, by projecting that, by paying this premium, all these types of services are covered, so we will give a bigger coverage compared to our competitive insurance companies. Then there'll be more signups, more subscribers to them, which will, again, so I think we need to make the conversation win-win, like, we should win, they should win. And so that should be a way to, and I think that's how all these stakeholder advocacy talks are happening, always in that way. And only when that happens, things will move forward and get succeed. If it's like a win-lose situation, obviously, one party will not be interested, because they are going to, they have more at the losing end. So um, first is like developing a good understanding. I don't know whether our curriculum covers those topics of reimbursement related to services. I think that's the first step. I think we need to bring it to their awareness. And also, I'm kind of thinking, please, the practitioners in India, please chime in. I'm kind of thinking, is there a way that we could, like, come up with a model where, say 125 per kid is definitely essential, but is there a way that we could have 4 children, like it's sort of a concurrent therapy, we are doing it and then billing it for them, so we'll get 500 for the same hour, but 4 children's got the benefit. So, and also, like, for some of these adult oriented services like stroke rehab, and also if you have some similar symptomatology, again, like we talk about client centered care and all, but when it comes to the model of service delivery, do we really need to rethink when it comes to the Indian context of how we can maximize productivity, and thereby, see, to run one session, if it costs for a practitioner 750 rupees or 1000 rupees, for example, and if you're just kind of getting it from one patient, it's definitely a costly services. And obviously it comes into question about from the insurance agencies, from even like self out of pocket pay and all. But if we just say that, maybe in a community setting where a lot of these people are coming in for a group session, and then we are still getting the same, we are getting the same money for the same time investment, but then it's kind of like several people are chiming in, chipping in differently. So that may be another way to look. Again, it's not like always possible for all type of services that I know as an OT, but like for those services that can be done in a concurrent manner, I think we need to rethink the model of service delivery a little bit, to really expand the number of beneficiaries. The more people receives OT, the more people talks about the benefits of OT, it is going to only boost us up. boost the image of the profession. More people are going to seek OT. So I think keeping it one-on-one, keeping it on the costlier end is also indirectly reducing the visibility of our profession and also minimizing the access to a lot of people to our services. Again, just my thought. Definitely, there will be a lot of different viewpoints. This is my humble view. Murali, please go ahead.
You know what? This is exactly a sort of thing which is happening in the Chief Minister Insurance Scheme approved centers because I can't blame them also. They have to survive by providing service for at least 50 to 60 children in a monthly basis under the insurance scheme so that they get considerable amount. So the service where they usually go about as a group sessions or with the therapy assistant or other helps, they find their own ways of doing therapy within that amount or combining two, three children together in one single slot to go about because the remedial education can happen that way. They include that under the group session scheme. The individual sessions happen separately for them. So I think that's how they are covering it up. And one more thing is, I think if I'm not wrong, it is Star Health Insurance, which is quite coming forward and asking that you can start an insurance for the children with autism or for the children who are going for therapy. But the negative aspect is, this through my experience, everybody must have had the same experience at this point of time. These the public also always believes that this will get over soon. I will come out of it soon, so it's not going to be a longer thing. And if you go and tell them, like you might have autistic children when you get married, and then so for that you take an insurance, nobody's going to buy it. But unfortunately, there is a rising case of stuff. And that's one thing, people are not ready to take up. I think Star Health Insurance is offering insurance coverage for autism. Now you can start it if you haven't had a child yet. But will you go and buy an insurance thinking I'm going to get an autistic child? Or a child who's going to have a congenital abnormality, the percentage is going to be very less. He says, sir, if 100 people are taking, there might be some 5 people who will get it. I will provide them the care. But the 95 people are not going to pay it because they hope the best can happen to them. The difficult part. So I think this is where we are going a little differently in this aspect. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a point well taken, but again, that's how the insurance operates, right? The basic premise is like like anything could happen to anyone at any point in time. So then we just need to have some sort of a blanket insurance cover to minimize the impact of that condition, or like it could be an accident, it could be a health condition, it could be a heart attack. Anybody is prone to get anything. We are living in that kind of a world now for sure. So obviously, like the people who can afford to pay for health insurance or value the health insurance coverage are going to get one. But that's where I think if insurance says I'm covering a broader spectrum of services, no, like regardless of whatever you get, like I will cover inpatient, I will cover outpatient, I will cover rehab, I will cover core medical services, I will cover ICU services. So then they say, okay, I get more bang on the buck. Like instead of paying say 600 to one insurance, if I'm paying 750 to this insurance that provides a broader spectrum of coverage, then it's a worthy investment. So I think the insurance companies will take care of the messaging and the messaging it to
No,
the
no,
audience, and then they get it covered.
no.
But
See,
we need to convince them. That's the piece that go ahead, Murli.
I'll tell you what. See, we are all talking about IT people getting the benefit of children going to therapy.
Yeah,
But what is the insurance coverage they are getting? IT companies are basically, most of the IT companies are not from India based. They're all European based. What happens is their insurance coverage system is something else. So they are demanding the insurance companies here in India that you provide what I want for my employees to go through. I want to give them this benefit, you give me this benefit. So that's why the people who are in the IT get these benefits. The
yes,
regular insurance provided for other people in India is not included in this because the system itself is wrong here for us.
true.
I think I didn't think about it before. When you speak about it, it's IT companies are getting best out of it because they demand it and they follow what they have been doing in their parent country. So the Indians are benefiting because of the companies who are abroad. Maybe not from the Indian insurance companies because they think differently. So I think if other insurance companies, everybody else follow that pattern, automatically everybody's insurance thing will be covered. Oh wow, that's something of a kind of eye opener for us. So let's put something together and then push companies for this direction.
I think we need to take a lot of initiative. I'm no Dr. Sorry, Godandan sir is waiting for a long time. Please proceed.
Yeah, that's fine, Karthik. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say there, your point is well made about having a group therapy. It is actually feasible in school settings and in the hospital settings, like where you have patients together and you have children together. And it has to happen in the natural environment, like in school. The children have to go to school and like the community gatherings and people come there. Whereas if you organize kind of a group session yourself, there's a lot of expenses involved, like bringing them in, or whether they come in or you bring them in. There's going to be cost and there's going to be time spent. Um, that's when the COVID actually brought in the light or the recognition of the kind of remote therapy. So you could actually reach them, and then in the travel time, you could see the other patient or the other child, and then you have the tools, and you could have the exercise or the activity like the equipments for the stroke or the children. You can leave them in the house, and they can do that, and then they can come into the kind of unit. You show them how to use it for maybe once a month or once a week, depending on the need, and then they can follow that up in their house with this similar kind of equipments. And maybe the services, if you have an education program or a therapy program kind of instructions, and they can do that. And once you record them, and many people, it's one to many, and that's kind of the cost effective method. And again, the group therapy is one of the cost effective method as long as it happens in the natural environment. And that's what in the west, in the Europe, they're looking at. So they are kind of decentralizing the care. They are not bringing patient into hospital. They try to keep them in the house where they spend their life in the natural environment. And there's a kind of a cost to the lighting, heating, and the resource, like a cleaning and all the human resource. And that could be avoided just one person going into the house and teach them if possible. That could be followed up remotely, or can be followed up kind of a system where they follow the instructions or equipments.
Yeah, that's a valid point, and it's a great idea too. I think that's what I always like felt like, we need to start rethinking the model of service delivery to make it, more beneficial to all the parties involved, and to also promote the access to the services. And then on the same note, I know that we just kind of well past our time limit, but I just want to like, share this thought as well. Like, I always felt like, there is a lot of this religious groups or non-profit, like the association type of groups and all there. So for example, I'm kind of really thinking like, say, fall prevention. If you really look at the fall statistics of India, you might realize what I'm talking about. It's like, so those are like, we have some expertise in fall prevention, but nobody is going to come to a clinic for a one-on-one session and pay X amount of money to get a fall prevention education or something. So we need to really think of like, okay, so like, of course, Tamil Nadu is a temple city, and also we have a lot of these public places. And then if you're going to really do something, again, you are charging for your time and expertise, but we are not really like making a sort of a big profit there. So what we could like do is reach out to these foundation type of entities, and then say, hey, you are meant for this foundation, like Parkinson Foundation or whatever it is, right? So we will do this education program on behalf, like, like if you're having a clinic or entity, registered entity, they can say, on behalf of this entity, we are just only going to charge for our time, transportation and thing. We are not making any extra amount there. We are just only like, charging a reasonable fee, and you can provide. And anybody underneath your umbrella, anybody belong to your association, or anybody belong to the local community can come and benefit. So for them, then they say, oh, it's a free thing, and they're teaching about how to prevent falls at home, they will come. And then like those who are higher at risk will obviously come to know that the value and the expertise that we have, and they might say, okay, that session was really beneficial, and I really want to see how my home is going to, like, then they might reach out and say, okay, I would like this OT to come and like do a home evaluation for me, and like give me some more customized recommendations and all. So the one thing is making our value of services more visible, number one, and number two, like, we need to really see how, like, this one therapist can really like benefit like 50 elderly people, and then that entity, if they have this scheduled program, with a structured program, they can travel across Tamil Nadu and then like go. So we are taking the services to their local community, providing that services, promoting the visibility of OT, and also, like, whatever the travel cost and the expertise, the time of the people involved, their own salary, whatever it is, we are just going to. I think a lot of these foundations will really appreciate that there's plenty of non-profit societies registered in Tamil Nadu. If you go to Tamil Nadu Societies Act, you can see how many. So again, some of them are not maybe big, but some of them may be, and they definitely have funds at their outset. And if it is really like we make a case that aligns with their value, it's going to benefit their community. And then also, every time we do this type of program, we need to collect the data, feedback forms after the session, so we can say that, oh, these many people found this so valuable, all this information. And then also we can look at the false statistics after we start doing this program. According to the government data, the number of people admitted secondary to false or declining, stuff like that. What it takes time. But I think we need to start somewhere, and we need to rethink the model where it is also benefiting the people. The services becomes affordable. At the same time, OT is not losing a penny, in the sense OT is making what he or she is supposed to make, no doubt about it. We are investing so much time and money to become an OT. There's no doubt about it. I'm not asking any OT to do any free service. At the same time, we need to think, how can we make our services, while we are not losing any money, how can we make our services more visible and more accessible? And in a country like India, we need to really capitalize on the public resources as much as possible. So I would say, to run a fall prevention or stroke survey support group, something like that, a temple, a big temple might be, there's a lot of space in the temple. We need to talk to the relevant authorities. And then if you're doing this for a noble cause, everybody will be on board. So there should be a funding source, there should be a public venue, and enough promotion, like 2 to 3 weeks before that entity, through flyers, communications, local WhatsApp groups, etc. And then we gather the people there, and then, like, do things, a modeling of just simple exercise and strengthening conditioning exercise program for elderly people will prevent a lot of prevent a lot of falls. So this will all improve their quality of life. This will all promote their independence, and then the family members in the society will start looking at the value of OT services. So I will just stop there. And if anybody wants to, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Karthik. This is for Abhijit, Manashri, and Saumil. If any one of you wants to take it forward, because I'm taking the lead from Karthik's words here. The YMCA in Bombay Central had done a fall prevention workshop for the elderly in their community. When I was there, I think it was in 2008. The presently the manager in the Bandra main YMCA is one of my friend Amol. So please reach out, and they would be very happy to do it. And then I think this is a fantastic option. What Karthik said, that we reach out to group of organizations and then conduct it. Our YMCA is very much into empowering seniors and protecting them. So they would love to do it, and any organization for that matter. And I'm also taking a lead from that here. And then we have this Ayappa Samaj here in Ananagar. So I'm going to kind of go approach them and do it. And I'll also approach some of the neuro rehabs departments which I'm associated with here in Chennai, to probably put it in action and do it as a one day show. So yes.
Yeah. I see, again, why I brought this up in this conversation is basically, in addition to insurance, we should also look for other sources of funding. So that is what I'm telling, is like these non-profit entities, another organization who has their own mission. And then if we show that we can support their mission through this initiative, and the funding should come from that entity, that is another way to, like, getting some sort of foundation grants in a way, if you put it in a broader context. But that would also be a step forward for us, thinking about reimbursement. Because I think that's a thing. I told you, like, very clearly, if you're going to tell an elderly patient, you come to my clinic, pay me 1,000 rupees for 1 hour session, I'm going to teach you this, it's not going to happen. So we really need to think of all those things. I think it's a fantastic conversation, and again, we need to be respectful of everyone's time. We will pass the time, so I'll turn it back to moderator for any closing thoughts and comments, and we can wrap it up.
So I thank each and every one of you who's joined, who's taken the time to be with us and share your thoughts, throw some light on whatever we've been discussing. So I hope it was a productive session for each and every one of you. We'll take the lead from here on and work some more, create the data, and talk with the insurance providers so that they reimburse more for us. And so, thank you so much for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And I also invite Abhijit, Vanashri, and Saumil. I know Saumil personally, and I've heard about Vanashri and Abhijit a lot. They are fantastic professionals, and if they are willing, we could have them in the IOTT members group.
Sure,
Okay.
and for others as well, Ms. Raj, Rajeshwari, and
Good.
Godan, and everyone. Yeah, we are going to open up the membership very soon. There will be a communication from our end. We are widening our membership, and more people, can join us, and we'll continue to take the profession forward. Once again, thank you so much, everyone, for your time, and on behalf of
Yes,
IOTT,
thank you very
once
much.
again. Bye, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you,
day wherever
everyone.
you want. The rest of
Thank
your
you
day
very
will be.
much.
Thank
you,
you.
Murli
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Abhijit. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vanashri.
Bye bye.
Bye. I'm going to end the meeting for everyone. Thank you.